Welcome into the Illini Inquirer Podcast. It is Jeremy Werner, Joey Wagner. Happy Thanksgiving. We are working on a Thanksgiving, getting you ready for Illinois against Northwestern, the regular season finale for the number 22 ranked Illini at 8-3, 5-3 in the Big Ten. Been a great season, and a great way to put a cap on it would be to get the hat back. The Landon Lincoln Trophy against a struggling Northwestern program, 4-7, 2-6 in the Big Ten, currently 16th place in this current Big Ten. Joey, we'll do our normal six-pack of questions for you, those out there who usually have an opposing beat writer. Outside of the Daily Northwestern, there really isn't an opposing beat writer for Northwestern. So we'll just talk about the Illinois side of things. And there's not a ton to break down about this Northwestern team. But Joey, happy Thanksgiving, man. Good to have you. We'll get you back to your Thanksgiving dinner here in a minute.
Got to get that corn. I don't know. What's it? Scallop corn? What's the corn dish? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, for people who don't know, here, I'll turn my camera a little bit. I am at the Great Wolf Lodge. You see the wolf den back there? My kids sleeping in the bunk beds. They were pumped about the bunk beds. They're currently at the water park. I was with them all day yesterday. It's a nice little getaway for the family here in Kansas City. But we did get Jack Stack barbecue last night. The burnt ends, man. Oh, so good. I'm tempted to go get some Q39 tonight on the way home from the basketball game if they're open. But yeah, good to be in Kansas City, man.
I am in Peoria in a Bears man cave right now, and I'm feeling there's a Devin Hester frame picture behind me. We had a few adult sodas and hung a Bears dartboard last night. So we're living our best life here on Thanksgiving, Jeremy, in Kansas City. It's a big basketball game today, Jeremy.
Yeah, we're recording this like 15 minutes before the Bears Lions kickoff, which is fine with me because I think Joey, as a Packers fan, is going to enjoy this first game before he gets the Dolphins later today. So I think you're going to enjoy this.
It's going to be good. Hey, what a Thanksgiving day for people in Illinois, Bears fan, Illinois fan overlap. That is to sit on the couch for 6 hours and watch sports all day if you can break away and your family allows it.
Well, Joey, this timed up well because right now Grant Beerman, the 4-star composite recruit, has just announced that he is decommitted from Purdue and is joining the Illini. He will sign with the Illini next week. 4-star composite prospect, top 500 prospect in the composite. What a big flip for Illinois at a huge position of need, Joey.
Yeah, it's a big one. We talked about linebacker as one of the biggest needs in this class, and we know, they've really kind of been quiet on that front. I felt like they were all in on Grant Beerman, got him on an official visit when the Purdue season really went pretty sideways over in West Lafayette, and you go get a big athletic linebacker who fits exactly what this team needs, and would imagine he's an early playing time candidate when he gets on campus.
Yeah, he's a big linebacker, 6'4", 220 pounds. Really reminds me a little bit of Jimmy Rolder, the Michigan linebacker who Illinois really pushed hard after, Joey, a couple years ago. And they just need size. They need some athleticism. And most of all, they need somebody at that weak side linebacker position. I think Ryan Mead has stepped up the last couple games. But, Kenana Odeluga played there pretty well a couple years ago as kind of the pass rusher in those situations. But ever since Calvin Hart left the program, they just haven't had that athletic guy. I know it was only really one big game by Calvin Hart, but you saw what an athletic linebacker can do for you, chasing sideline to sideline, being able to rush the passer from that position, and just have somebody who can make some plays in space. And Illinois is also recruiting JUCO linebacker Ishmael Conte, who's a really athletic player. And you talk about making plays in space, certainly would add some speed. I think that's what makes Malachi Hood so interesting to us. It's because he just looks different, plays different, feels different. Beerman, I think, is going to take some time to get there. I don't think he's going to be a freshman starter. I don't think that should be the expectation. But you talk long-term, Archie McDaniel, I asked him a couple of weeks ago what he wants in a linebacker, and there's a lot of those things. Big, athletic, can make plays in space when it's him one-on-one, and that's certainly where Illinois has struggled. I think Ryan Mead, James Kreutz and Malachi Hood have stepped up here at the end of the year against some teams that aren't as great, but against some of those really good running backs, the Illini have struggled to cover with that linebackers.
Yeah, we've talked to even like 26 kids, and when we ask what they like, they say, hey, we can get after the quarterback, we can stop the run, we can go out and cover a running back in space on a route, and we've seen that be a problem for Illinois. So it's a big one. We say early playing time. I mean, I'm not a freshman, but probably a guy who you look at his redshirt freshman, sophomore year is a guy that you could see pushing. It's just a really big flip for Illinois and a headliner to a class that didn't have any 4-stars really, Jeremy, but guys who are 4-star talents. We're not going to get you on the 4-star rampage and rant again and how there's not enough of them. But this is the guy who's going to sit at the top of that recruiting class.
Yeah, and you think of this class and you think of some of the flips, Joey, they've had in this fall. And it just kind of points to where Illinois is just in a different spot. Like covering this program for so many years, the top Illinois guys in a class, you're always worried about, will they stay? Will they get there through signing day because bigger fish are going to come along, or Illinois is going to have instability and have bad season? There's going to be questions about the long term of that head coach. That isn't the case with Illinois right now. Like Brett Bielema is the guy here. They're having success. They're a top half Big Ten team 2 out of the last 3 years, and potentially top 5, top 6, right? The 2 out of the last 3 years. And Bielema is going to be here for a while. And Beerman wanted to play in this style of defense, right? Under Ryan Walters. It's the same defense, basically. It's close to home. He's from Ohio. And it's a really good Lakota West program. They're recruiting Cam Thomas out of there as well, 2026 4-star linebacker who looks really good as well. So I think this is big for Illinois, that they're in the position now where they hunt. So these vulnerable programs, right? Like North Carolina, they went and flipped Logan Farrell, 3-star tight end, missed on the first time around, went and got him. Grant Beerman, 4-star linebacker, committed to Purdue. Purdue 0-10 against FBS opponents this year. Illinois is able to flip him, steal him. And then, of course, you go get the guys from the lower level programs, Grant Smith, Tywan Cox, J.J. Hurtis. That's kind of run-of-the-mill stuff, but Malik Elzy, Colin Dixon, I'll even say Andrew Dennis last year. I know it didn't stick, and we're still waiting for Elzy to make an impact. But the fact that in the fall they can go get guys like that, I think is huge for this program. And it's just another sign of progress for them.
Yeah, and you can add Zach Toby, again, a guy who didn't stick, but you flip him from North Carolina. You can add Colin Dixon, a guy who's making an impact for them. You flip him when instability at Wisconsin at the time and opened up his recruitment. I think along those lines, everything you said echo that. But to this point, you're a week from signing day, and you still beat out SEC programs for Braden Trimble. You've still held on to Isaiah White. You've still held on to your guys who are attractive recruits to other programs, who in the past you've seen programs come in and as you mentioned, like say, hey, this isn't a very stable program at Illinois, and have flipped some of those guys. And that's not happening right now. So for as big of a deal as the flips are, and they're a huge deal, holding on to your guys, that push going into that signing day, man, it is. I know Brett Bielema has talked about it 100 times. You're in the living room, shaking hands, smiling, eating meals at these kids' house to keep holding on to that. But that's a huge deal too, to keep those summer guys through this season, and obviously being 8-3 with a chance for a 9-win season and a top half of the Big Ten team and in the college football playoff rankings and likely headed to the Citrus Bowl. That helps, and it backs up what Brett Bielema and this coaching staff have been selling to a lot of these kids for not just 1 year, right? Braden Trimble's a multi-year guy. You look at some of these commits they've got. Andre Levette's a multi-year guy. Now you're backing up what you said 2 years ago to these guys for what this program could be, and that's a huge part of this thing as you push towards signing day.
You guys have heard me talk up Home Field Apparel for a while now, but now is the time to get to homefieldapparel.com because they have their most ambitious sale to date, their Black Friday sale. 30% off site-wide on everything at Home Field Apparel, which is the premium collegiate apparel brand, and they're based right out of Indianapolis. Go to homefieldapparel.com, look up their Illinois gear, guys. They got Script Illini gear, Flying Illini gear. Their bomber jacket is phenomenal. They just have everything vintage. Everything looks great. All these great logos from Illinois' past, even some hockey gear on there as well. And now is the time to go there because their Black Friday sale is great. 30% off a whole site at homefieldapparel.com. Just use code BFCM24. That's BFCM24 for 30% off site-wide at homefieldapparel.com. If you have an Illini fan in your life that you need a gift for, go to homefieldapparel.com and check out some of the great Illini gear. My personal favorite is the Flying Illini logo. They have a hoodie, they have a t-shirt, and the great things about these shirts, they're great fitting, and they are so comfortable, guys. So go check it out, homefieldapparel.com, 30% off their Black Friday sale. Go to homefieldapparel.com and use coupon code BFCM24, and you get 30% off now through December 3rd at homefieldapparel.com.
Yeah, Joey, and the one thing I want to point out is what a first get for Archie McDaniel, right? Like it was kind of like, we'll see what he can do in recruiting. You know, they hadn't gotten a linebacker early in this class. Him and Clint Sintum got here late. So you're wondering, you know, when do they make an impact in this class? Clint Sintum still looking to add an edge. Maybe that is in the transfer portal, but to add a guy like this, for him, Grant Morgan, an assistant linebackers coach, played a role in this as well. I think some of those support staffers, those assistant coaches we've talked about, Art Sikowski, but Grant Morgan is involved there too, a really good linebacker at Arkansas that played for Bielema. Good get for those guys to start this thing off. And this is the caliber of linebacker you want moving forward.
Yeah, as you mentioned, you know what Archie McDaniel's looking for in a linebacker. Cam Thomas. Also, what a linebacker crew at Lakota West with Cam Thomas and Grant Beerman. Yeah, man, it's a good start for Archie McDaniel, a guy who said just kind of didn't have a wide net out there. It felt like they were zoned in on a couple guys and we're locked in there, and they go and get a big one. And yeah, we'll see what happens on the edge. Jeremy, I think that's our next area of focus for Illinois in this recruiting class is how they replace Seth Coleman, and we'll see Gabe Akis. But getting that linebacker, that was a huge position of need. And if you think back to a year ago, we had said, hey, tight end, linebacker, and they've checked a lot of those boxes. Grant Smith is a guy. I'm going to go see him tomorrow in the Class 2A state championship from Earl Forsyth. He got 18 touchdowns, Jeremy. 18 receiving touchdowns. A guy who, an under-the-radar guy, is going to need time to add strength. That's the story of literally every tight end other than the top 3% of tight ends in the country. But I'm really intrigued by his long-term future. But you're just seeing them check off these boxes that were very clear to identify a year ago, and they've hit those here, and that's been really impressive to see.
Yeah, and listen, I think Tywan Cox is a really good prospect too. Like I know it's South Florida, whatever, but he had Power 4 offers, and Torrey Cox's brother, he's bigger than him. He's just as fast as him, if not faster. And it comes from NFL lineage. So I do like some of these flips they've had. As for the rest, that might do it for preps. Right. Unless there's a late ad, you've had the Tanner Hackle, we've had Matthew Bailey, and they've hit really well on some of these late guys, Mac Resetich with that spring period. But this might be it, because I don't know if they've gained traction with an edge, but they are going after JUCOs, and they just had 3 JUCO prospects here. We talked about Conte, 6'2", 225, athletic, playmaker in space, just got offered by Kansas State. He told me this morning he's got other schools coming after him potentially to get him on a visit this weekend. Early signing period is next week from Wednesday through Friday. So we'll see on him. They had Lamadrick Spencer, a 3-star defensive back. I like him as a nickel. And that could be a position if Xavier Scott decides to go pro that they need to fill, or if Xavier Scott, they want to move to corner for his senior year. They might need another nickel to get in there and compete. They have like JUCO corners here recently with Caleb Patterson. Chase Canada, I think, is going to compete after redshirting this year. And then the most important one, I think, is Tylen Coleman, a defensive lineman, 6'4", 280. You watch some of his film. He's younger, way less experienced, of course, but he does some of the Dennis Briggs things. And they definitely need some guys up front. So a couple more JUCOs could visit them. I wrote about that on the VIP side of things this week, Joey. But JUCOs seem like how they want to close out this class before the transfer portal opens on December 9th. And that's going to be important, not only for Illinois to add pieces, but to retain pieces, because some of their guys are probably going to be in high demand going into this offseason. But there's the end of the regular season is Saturday, but the offseason is going to start real in earnest right away after that.
Yeah, we're in a group chat, and me, you, and Ryan Easterling, it's like, wait a minute, signing day is Wednesday?
Oh,
like that?
I'm not ready, Joey.
That is coming up quick. I might have to actually do some work and help you out on that this year. Yeah, I'm with you. I think, I don't know, you don't want to write off any more prep editions, because we've seen there's too much of a body of work to think in February Brett Bielman, his coaching staff, will unearth some safety from somewhere playing something, right? That's just kind of how they go. It has been overwhelmingly safeties, Jeremy.
Yeah, probably going to be a safety. Yeah, and I have no problem with that, because they are really good evaluators at safety.
I was going to throw out like some small town in Illinois, but then I know someone's going to be like, okay, and then you're going to have like every Max Preps roster is going to be turned upside down for those small towns trying to figure it out. But yeah, it feels like JUCO, portal, and retention. That's where it is at this point. And they've kept the guys. I think that to me is the biggest thing is to this point, they've kept all those guys, and you cap it off with a Grant Beerman, and that's a pretty good class. I know someone's going to hear this say, oh, their rankings. It's fine. The offer lists, you go by the offer list of what Illinois is competing with these guys, and they've won some legit battles here in the class of 2025. Almost got backed up there.
Yeah, and I don't mind people wanting to raise the bar. Like I think Bielema has raised the bar, right? But you got to continue raising the bar as you win games, and I think that's going to be a big story of 2026. Is now you've had 2 out of 3 successful seasons. Your NIL is going up, and I would hope that it goes up after this. Joey, I am so interested, and this might be a question I ask Bielema if they win, assuming they win on Saturday. Might be a question I ask him on Saturday or maybe for signing day is, how do they approach revenue share? We're starting to hear about revenue share deals being signed, and like the House settlement, like, is it even all approved yet? Like, all of that stuff is going to impact a lot of this stuff moving forward. But I think it's all going to help Illinois, and I think they're going to continue raising the bar. And as we know, in the class of 2026, they are in on some top prospects, some 4-star guys. You know, the type of talent you have to get to elevate this program and make it a top half Big Ten program potentially. Take that Wisconsin or Iowa spot as like the top team outside of the top tier, which is just a different level of college football than everybody else, right? So I think that's important. I think it's a process for a program like Illinois, but I do think they're gradually moving the chains, right, of what expectations for this program is. I think 2025, you add a Beerman to it. You know, Alex Graham's still out there. Michigan, I felt, has been the leader if they really want to push for him, but he still has not announced anything. So I don't know if he's still in the cards for Illinois, if they can still land him. But that could be the one prospect left out there, another 4-star composite guy that Illinois is battling until the end for him. And I think that says something about NIL too, because Grant Beerman and Alex Graham are not guys who aren't going to get any NIL going somewhere with the suitors that they've had.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this off air. Credit to, like, we've known, or just the way we've observed how Illinois does things, that the priority is in the NIL, when the coffers, by the way, were not as big. What was retention, portal, prep. But I think you've got to give credit where it's due to pivoting and understanding that, okay, we've got to be a part of prep NIL, because that's how you raise the talent level. And like, I know that someone's going to hear this and say, well, yeah, of course. But you've got to like understand the reality of just kind of adapting to what's happening in front of you and realizing that, hey, we've got to kind of change maybe the way we thought about things, or maybe the way we're able to do things now, because you're winning games and NIL coffers. And the next step now, Jeremy's put like a bucket in that Northwest Tower. So when all the fans are there, you just throw money and coins down in the bucket as Brett Bielema does his walkthrough after games. But
that's right.
I would expect to see an increase of that going forward, and they should, right? I mean, that this program, it has shown that it's a good coaching staff. You can win games with talent, but with the talent they have. But yeah, you want to upgrade that, and it takes money to do that. So that's college football in 2024, Jeremy. But yeah, I think that's not nothing, is to recognize that, you know, high school kids, maybe we haven't seen that be a priority, but they're expanding that in terms of making sure they're well competent. And look, I say that. So this isn't the first high school kid to ever get NIL at Illinois. Like you look right, like, but I'm just saying, like, you can see that there's probably more of an emphasis in those guys. Like, I don't want to paint like your Malik Elzies or Caden Fagans or whoever.
Right.
They didn't come here for nothing. Like, obviously there's NIL involved. If there's a picture with these kids on Icon's Twitter page, I mean, what's we haven't done the win horse in a while, but the win horse.
Yeah. No, but the priority has always been retention, transfers, and preps, and that's smart, right? For a program like Illinois, you don't want Gabe Backus and Pat Bryant to leave you. You don't want Luke Altmaier to leave you, because then you have to fill that spot and go spend more money anyway. So if you can retain those guys, Johnny Newton, Keith Randolph, Isaiah Williams, all those guys could have gone somewhere else, but to keep them was so important for this program to build and to build on it. And then you had transfers so you can win earlier than later, right? So you can gain some momentum. But now you're at the program where you look at this roster next year, Joey, if you can retain, you know, a lot of guys, if you can find a way to keep Backus and Xavier Scott for another year, but even not, like, if you can keep just the core of your guys that you're building, you have a bunch of juniors, sophomore, freshmen on this team. There's only 10 scholarship seniors on this team. So if you can retain that, build it, these guys got a lot of experience, and then just build on top of it, then you're actually building a program. And I think we got to bring up, before we get to the Northwestern game, yeah, this is a pretty satisfying win against Purdue, right? Like, if you're Brett Bielema and the recruiting battle that was going back for about a year and a half before Purdue really just kind of tanked this season, 0-10 against FBS opponents, This is the 6th decommitment in the class of 2025 for Ryan Walters. I respect the heck out of Ryan. I think he's a really good coach. I think obviously he was too green for this job right now. And there's reports that he can come back for a 3rd year. I don't know how Purdue does that with what's going on, the talent that they're losing, the recruiting lack of momentum you have. I just don't know how they do it, but if they do, it's another chance for Illinois to win more of these recruiting battles. But I guarantee inside that Smith Center, this feels pretty good.
Yeah, and we had kind of wondered how frosty that relationship had gotten when Ryan Walters went 90 minutes east. Tough
Yes.
Tough geography for me. And we don't.
Don't worry, Joey. My daughter's still learning left from right, so you're good.
Sometimes I still have to do the L to remind myself.
That's what we're teaching her. Yeah.
I can host this class. We'll bring her on. We'll get this taken care of. But after the Purdue game, when Brett Bielema had his rant, what did he say? Just pisses me off. Was his words. I think that was the moment where it's like, oh, we don't really have to wonder anymore. This is clear.
I wonder because there is respect between the two.
No doubt.
Ryan, what he did here was great. And I think there's a lot of respect for what he does. And obviously Ryan coaches pretty well against Illinois. They go head to head, including as an offensive play caller. But I wonder how much Reggie Love, Trey Smith, that whole thing played into it. Yeah, stealing some of the staff members, like Bielema picked Aaron Henry over Kevin King. Right. So he picked that. He knew one of those guys was going to leave and send some of those support staffers. Yeah, that's fine. Those guys get a bigger job or whatever. And Bielema's done a pretty good job. I wonder how much of that was the transfers. That's just me speculating.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think it was a fact of leaving, like the coaches leaving. I think Brett understands the business. I think Brett understands when you're looking at guys who were GAs or analysts at Illinois who came with Ryan, who came with Kevin when they got hired. Those guys have a chance to go be one of the 10 assistants, right? Like that is, I think he gets that. I think when you start talking about the transfers, I think we would be naive to think that Isaiah Williams wasn't the guy that, when Corey Patterson went, Isaiah said it was a tough decision for him, right? To stay at Illinois. I don't think that was just, I'm just speculating, but I think we all understand how this works. I don't think that was Isaiah.
We asked Isaiah at the bowl game. You could tell like he was, like that was tough.
Right. And I'm saying I don't think that was just him. Certainly there were obviously some back channeling, right? That's just how college football goes. So yeah, I think it's more players. I think it's recruiting, right? Like it's recruiting. That's what it all comes down to is you're in the same territory. You're overlapping the same territory. You're recruiting to a very similar system. And Ryan Walters
play each other every year.
100%. Ryan Walters gets Luke Williams at the commit and they, as you should do when you get a big commit, they blew it up on social media. And I just think all of that kind of plays in. I don't think it's a factor of the coaches. It's straight up talent. Brett Bielema's competitive. Ryan Walters competitive. And when you're, taking talent or you're winning recruiting battles for talent, I think that ruffles some feathers. So yeah, I would imagine it feels good the other way when you're Brett Bielema to flip a guy from Purdue, who just, by the way, is a huge position of need for you and a really good football player.
All right, Joey, let's flip to this football game. Illinois got one more football game left in this 2023 season. The chance to get to 9 wins for just the 8th time in program history. I want to repeat that. 9 wins for the 8th time in program history. I'll raise my hand. I did not think this team was capable of that against this schedule, Joey, right? I mean, you have Penn State, you have Oregon, you have Michigan on the schedule, and a bunch of other toss-up games. I thought this would have been a dream scenario to have 8 wins going into the final game against Northwestern, a rival. So what a season it's been for Illinois at this point. But, man, it'd feel even better if they're able to get this Land of Lincoln Trophy game back. I'm doing our preview and picks that I published this morning, Joey, and I texted you, like, it has been since 2010 was the last time Illinois had both the Cannon Trophy and the Land of Lincoln Trophy in the same year. Like, to check that box off too, like that is not insignificant. And obviously Purdue is down, but that was a close game. Obviously Northwestern is down, but it's never easy to win both those games. And those games are on your schedule every year. So if Brett Bielema can start changing that, where you're beating Purdue and Northwestern more often than not, that's going to be a huge sign for Illinois' success because that's 2 Big Ten games, right? And you hope you have 2 bye games on the schedule. Then you're 2 more away from a bowl game every year. So I think that would be significant if Illinois can get both those trophies in the trophy case for the first time in 14 years.
Yeah, when, by the way, they won the hat at Wrigley against Northwestern. Look, there's a reason when these protected rivalries came out and we said, oh, Purdue and Northwestern, yeah, that worked out pretty well for Illinois. And it's not Iowa, it's not Wisconsin. It's two programs. And look, I think things have changed to the point that you don't look at Iowa and Wisconsin if you're Illinois like some insurmountable obstacle like you had seen in the past. But objectively, you would prefer to play Purdue. You would prefer to play Northwestern, at least where they are right now. And historically, when Jeff Brom hasn't been there, and now without Pat Fitzgerald at Northwestern, like those are really, really winnable games for Illinois. And
especially when we're talking about resource era. I know it's always been resource, but like even more so now that you can legally pay players. Purdue is one of the worst in the Big Ten. Northwestern, one of the worst in the Big Ten. Like the fact that Northwestern's putting all that money into their stadium and not their roster. Don't know if that's going to work out for them, but like that, I think that's even more imperative. So go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, just to echo that, I mean, this is good for Illinois to have these two as their rivals. I just want to point out, I know we've said this a lot on here, Jeremy. In August, we thought will this be the 6th win for Illinois? Like that's just when you repeated the 8 wins with a chance for 9. I just want to set, and you said hand up, we didn't think this was going to be a 9-win Illinois football team. I just want to point out how differently things have gone from what we thought, and we weren't alone. The over-under wasn't exactly 7.5 for Illinois entering the season, right? So it's just the expectations have changed for this program this season in the same way we talked about it in 2022. But I don't want to lose sight of how much further ahead this team is than many people thought. I mean, if you're out there and you projected Illinois to win 9 games in the regular season, good for you. Buy a lottery ticket because like you were the outlier in August, just straight up you were. And now we're talking about a team who can win 9 and, barring Purdue with the ultimate vengeance to Illinois to knock Indiana out of the playoff, like you're headed to the Citrus Bowl. And that's a pretty good bowl. I understand that college football playoff bowl games are everything. But if you can get the best non-college football playoff bowl game, that's a pretty good place to be for Illinois. And you can take your fans to Orlando after Christmas and have a good time on New Year's Eve in Orlando.
Yeah, and it's weird that this might not even have an impact on that because Illinois and Iowa are the only teams that are 8+ wins that are out of the playoff, assuming Indiana takes care of Purdue, which I imagine they will.
That's the thing. Illinois could go take a knee for 4 quarters, lose this game, and still be in the Citrus Bowl as long as Purdue doesn't take a blowtorch to the college football playoff rankings.
Yeah.